What's going on, everybody? This is Jamie Cain with the Channel Unfiltered. Today, I am joined by the one and only Saurabh Sandhir from Kipling Secure. Saurabh, excited to have you on the show, man, and have the conversation. If you wouldn't mind giving us an introduction to who you are, what you're about, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, thanks, Jamie. Very excited to be here. I am Saurabh Sandhir. I've spent my career building infrastructure and security products for service provider and enterprise IT here in the Silicon Valley. My last role, I had a leadership position running a division of Nokia around cloud security. But what I'm most excited about is my current role, which is as co-founder and CEO of Kipling Secure. Kipling is focused on a new blind spot that MSPs are inheriting, which is unmanaged AI usage inside their clients. There have been many examples I can talk about, pilot customers, MSPs discovering New York area MSPs serving financial services, discovering 120 unique AI processes in some of their environments, and there was no inventory of it. That's why we built Kipling. Uh, and what Kipling does is we call it an AI detection and response platform for MSPs. But really, what it does is helps MSPs secure AI without slowing innovation. We deliver visibility, shadow AI controls, real time protection, helping turn MSPs turn AI risk into revenue. It's AI guardrails, it's the enforcement of any sort of AI governance. And that's the best way to describe Kipling. And hey, loving it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that introduction, man. I forgot to mention that you are a Pitch It competitor, like Pitch It by ConnectWise. How has that experience been? It just started. How has that experience getting selected and being a part of that?
Yeah, oh, it's been amazing. It's today we had, I think, a third session, so it's just the third week. But look, I mean, we had to make a decision to enter pitch it, even while we are our hands more than full, and we were running so hard. And the reason we did it is because ConnectWise sits at the center of MSP ecosystem, and secondly, many of the MSPs were nudging us to do so. And the biggest thing we have learned from Pitch It, is the fact that instead of talking like a security product company, AI discovery, shadow AI, prompt visibility, agent monitoring, all of those things matter. But we have been able to pivot and move to a model, a positioning where we talk about the services that Kipling can offer, how MSPs can turn that into a recurring AI security service, something they can package, explain, sell, deploy, and support repeatedly across many, many clients. So that's sort of even in the early days of Pitch It, with these input and guidance from the Pitch It crew. Sean is amazing. Shout out to Sean.
Yeah,
But
Sean's the
also
man.
absolutely the guests that have been on our sessions, uh, clearly able to see how the product matters, but what you got to sell is the service motion around it. And that coaching has essentially made us more disciplined, allowed us to establish value before talking pricing. So all good stuff. Can't wait for the
That's
rest of the
awesome.
season.
Yeah, excited for you, man. Well, so let's jump into it. My first question is, most business owners have no idea what AI tools their employees are actually using day to day, and shadow AI. There's a lot of studies around this right now about employees hiding their use of AI tooling from their employers for a lot of different reasons. How bad is the exposure problem really, in your opinion? And what would most people be shocked to learn about that?
Yeah, the look, I have a slightly different view on it. It's not that people are hiding AI, well, or deliberately. Look, AI is a paradigm shift. It does allow SMBs to become a lot more productive, or an employee there to become a lot more productive in their day to day tasks. And because there are no constraint controls right now, they are doing what they want and what they need. Sometimes the AI policies are, we're going to block all AI. There's no such thing. It's like saying, I'm going to block the cloud. What does that even mean? So what we discover, like I was talking about this pilot that we ran in the Manhattan area, financial services customer through one of our MSP partners, 138 AI tools. Now that seems very large, but then you start to, peel the onion, and AI is no longer ChatGPT in a browser. It's no longer somebody just, going to Claude.com or Anthropic and just typing in a prompt. It's, got so many layers. There are embedded tools, there are creative AI, there are APIs, even your well-known apps such as you might be using Adobe or you might be using Canva, they embed AI within it. So it has become all pervasive. And that's the part a lot of the sort of IT departments slash business owners in SMBs miss, that AI is not one thing. So just saying that, hey, we are just going to use co-work. Yes, that's good. That's a starting point, but it's much more pervasive, and you need to be able to control it without blocking innovation. I think that's the mantra. That's the balance. It's not about killing AI. It's not about blocking it. Hey, it's here. If you're not going to take advantage of it, well, your employees are going to do it anyway. And if you keep pounding on them, you're going to slow down your innovation.
I love that, man. I think that's a great answer. Where is the line between governing AI usage and killing the productivity gains that make AI worth adopting in the first place? And how do you think about that tension?
The killing productive, like, look, killing productivity gain is when you decide not to have a thought out enforcement of AI guardrails, not to have the governance, and you start with some kind of a paper policy. And paper policies are great, but it's a starting point. You say, I have a policy and everyone shall follow it or else. Now, two things happen here. One, many people don't follow it to begin with, so it's undermined. Then the people who are following it are sometimes left behind because they are not getting the full range of exposure. What it is doing is it's inculcating a feeling of fear, as if this is something that is outside of what is permitted, something that should not be done, and therefore they don't attempt it at all. Then they say stay AI illiterate. So that's that's the side of the spectrum around not having AI controls or not having any structure, versus a more thoughtful approach, which starts with what AI tools, given the context of our business, what we want to spend, what AI tools should we be allowing and using, what kind of data. By the way, data is a big thing. It's not about a tool you use, it's about how the data that you expose to these tools, that is equally critical. What kind of data can we let employees exchange with AI systems? Email writing is okay, maybe sending over financial details maybe not, maybe phis are not okay, but rewriting a draft is okay, so on and so forth. So you decide those parts, but even after making those calls, the question becomes, how do you enforce it? That's where you need a platform. That's why AI detection and response, it's a net new category of service, similar to EDRs and MDRs and all those old school things. And I can talk about why those are insufficient. So I think that's the tension. You can either play whack-a-mole with AI and say, oh, I'll block ChatGPT, and tomorrow I'll try to block another 11 labs.ai and foobar.ai that comes up. And in the process, you have this mishmash of slowing people down at the same time not having full control. Or you can start with the AI guardrails and AI governance, AI detection and response in place.
What I got from that mainly, because non-technical, right? So I try to sift through it is be purposeful in adoption, right? Know what you're
Absolutely.
trying to achieve before you adopt. Do you have any examples of the difference between purposeful adoption and non-purposeful adoption, maybe based off of FOMO or fear of missing out of the AI wave that's being pushed now?
Yeah. So I mean, many examples. I mean, I'll tell you about again another customer that we have uh, in healthcare space, again served by one of our MSP partners, and of course a regulated area, very sensitive in terms of what AI can or cannot do, and of course a lot of sensitivity around the data that can flow into AI. And they were in a place where, again, they had created just some mandates. And the MSP came to us, or rather went to them and said, yes, you have mandated that nobody shall use AI, but we keep getting these service calls from your employee asking me about how do I get this going in Chat GPT? How do I do this in Claude? How do I install this? So there is some dissonance that's going on, and that's your example of um, a more chaotic adoption path. And then they sort of moved with their help and utilizing some of our platform to, again, a paradigm where they looked at visibility in terms of where and how their AI is used in their environments, establish control over what can be shared with AI tools, and then put in specific policies, enforce policies, not just policies in terms of healthcare data should be blocked from accessing it. It's only Claude that can be used, not Chat GPT. We are going to get a Claude enterprise account, and we are going to put enforcement such that Claude can only be used through the enterprise account, not through your personal account or such things. And that has sort of given them that purposeful adoption that you're talking for of. So it's just one example from shifting from one end of the spectrum to the other. And I'll just add this: AI wave has just about started, and the next things that are on the horizon are things such as AI agents and MCP servers. And you don't even have to be technical to parse them. MCP is basically APIs for AI. That's the easiest way to put it. AI
Yep.
agents are giving LLM hands so they can do things on your behalf, whether it is to respond to your email or go book a hotel or whatever. And very powerful entities, but again, left uncontrolled, they can cause so much damage. But used with the right guardrails, they can be all the difference. So that's what it means to have purposeful adoption. It's not just about LLMs. It's not just about one type of AI. It's about the whole paradigm.
Yeah, as a non-technical user, I would consider myself a Claude power user, Claude Core power user,
There you
and
go.
have recently started to really dive into the MCPs and
There you
plugging
go.
that in, and it has been a game changer for me right now. I say that with keeping in mind the the trust factor, the always allow versus permission based, right, et cetera, right? There's a lot that we could go into, but one of the things I wanted to another question that popped up while you're talking is, there is a difference between personal AI adoption, ChatGPT, Claude, et cetera, where you see people adopting a mass, not needing to be trained, figuring out quickly because obviously it's simple,
Yeah.
and enterprise level solutions, right, being pushed from leadership upon employees, and there being a massive gap in adoption between those two scenarios, right? Why do you think that is? Why are enterprises, I mean, there's plenty of studies showing this, that are struggling with meaningful AI adoption, trying to get those efficiency gains by their workforce?
Yeah, I think there's several reasons. Sometimes, and as always, the leadership is disconnected from how the
Yeah, that's the
sausage
number
is
one
sausage
reason.
is sausage is made. I guess
Yes,
does that happen? Yeah, all
I
the time.
absolutely agree with you. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
so that's a critical aspect. There is also one aspect in terms of leadership often looking aiming for perfect, and there is no perfect. Uh, versus aiming for good enough, which can bring in that productivity boost. And I think that's where the difference lies. So you end up creating these AI projects, search for, you know, these holy grail tools that are going to be a silver bullet, which may not exist, versus taking what's available, customizing it for your environment, and using it as a tool, not as a way to get some to be able to eliminate people or to be able to overnight be able to shift into a completely new operating model. The gains will come, but you got to that crawl walk run discipline needs to be there. And sometimes top down, at least what I've seen is the leadership comes up with such unrealistic goals.
Yeah.
So there tends to be a huge disconnect.
I gotta jump in because you said two things that I say all the time, so I know we're kindred spirits. The crawl, walk, run. I say that in almost every demo and every onboarding for our own product. So I'm very glad that you mentioned that. And the second thing is this ridiculous notion of human replacement, not augmentation. Look, I have an AI
Right.
native company myself that, we've been at it for less than a year within the MSP channel, right? And from the very beginning, we always say and have said and continue to say it is about liberation, not replacement. The
Well
promise
done.
of AI is that it'll take care of your chores and fold your laundry, not take away the enjoyment out of life, right? And you see a lot of AI, at least that's what it should be, right? I often say that for our company that we are building the Iron Man suit and you're
Yeah.
Tony Stark stepping into it, right? Because I'm a big Marvel
Right.
comic guy, right? That leads me into I guess actually any general that's not a question, but any general thoughts on that before I jump into my next question.
Oh, no, 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 absolutely. I mean, the AI journey, I mean, I often even talk to MSPs in terms of it's not nothing to do with Kipling. What is AI? AI is means to an end. And how do you go about selecting? Again, goes back to the previous point of the AI tool. You don't start by looking for AI, okay? You start by looking for workflows, you know, that need to be and could be automated with AI. That's the first step, right? Second, you look at again, when you look for those tools, you don't just go and what you don't want is a lipstick on ChatGPT because you can use ChatGPT and you don't need to pay a 10x multiple with somebody who has just put lipstick around it. So you do your diligence in terms of understanding what their models are, what their data retention policies is, and what have the core IP they have developed. And then you have to look at the financial impact, right? I mean, maybe less so in SMBs, but certainly in large enterprises, I see them throwing so much money on these again. Some of these snake oil salesman projects around AI because they are missing the forest for the woods, and therefore having that notion of what do you want to automate, what's actually underneath the covers as far as the AI tools are concerned, what is the financial outcome or the acceleration to offer. That's the right cadence, I believe, for MSPs or for any SMB.
Yeah, I literally could not agree more. So we're on that brings me to my next question. This one is scripted, so I'm just going to read this one because I want to make sure that I get it right. So you're familiar first with the MIT study where they studied 150 companies, right? And they found the 95% failure rate, right? So basically MIT's initiative studied 150 companies, found 95% of enterprise AI pilots delivered zero measurable ROI. And the core problem from the study wasn't the AI, it was the generic tools don't learn or adapt to the specific workflows of the business using them. You kind of hit on that just now. From where you sit, watching these companies try to govern and adopt AI through their MSPs, what does that failure actually look like on the ground? And what's the difference that the 5% are doing?
Yeah. So look, I think while I mean I know that study has gained a lot of traction and clicks, but I am an AI believer. Okay, I do believe that AI is fundamentally going to change. Is already changing how we do things, how we achieve them, what rate and whatnot. Now, as far as those enterprise AI adoption, like I said, it's that study looked at a lot of these top-down projects where suddenly you want, I mean, the Mr. CEO decides that he wants AI to assemble cars or some such crazy thing, and of course that project gets taken off and gazillions get thrown at it, and then it comes up a cropper. Where I've seen better success personally is when things are done more bottoms up, when the project initiatives come from folks who are actually doing the work versus coming from the as a diktat from above. That's one factor. The other factor, which is sort of converse, is where AI sees more success. In SMBs, it sees more success than in enterprise because SMBs are don't have to go through that motion of you know running massive pilots and making justification. They are more plugged into how their business operates. And SMB is a wide market, so I accept that, but I'm separating it from the Fortune 500 or whatever the Fortune thousands
Yeah.
of the world. And I see more traction when it's a tighter smaller group of people who know what they're doing today and know what help they can gain from it. I mean, MSP who knows their ticket triaging is a issue, or knows that their support calls need to be automated, is much better off implementing AI versus a disconnected, hey, I hate to say, a PE owner eh, who says, hey, I want an AI automated MSP, whatever that means, do it. And
Exactly.
that's where the difference boils down to. Although I have some questions about that 95% failure rate. It
Sure.
just seems too high.
Yeah, they renewed that study. They just read it again, and apparently it's holding true. But I want to go back to the SMB thing because there's a lot of nuance there, and I agree. But it has caught a lot of traction. I think it's worth discussing. But going back to the SMB thing, I think really what it comes down to is SMBs are so intimately aware of the outcome they're trying to achieve, but the process that it takes to get to that outcome. They know the things that they have to do to drive the outcome, to drive the end goal. So when they step in and look at AI automation, they have a not only an advantage from a very fast integration and iteration period and can fail fast and can move on if necessary and don't have to throw a ridiculous amount of time and resources at that, but they can know from the very get-go, okay, steps 1 through 10, I know achieve this outcome. Does this solution actually do that? And does it take that off my plate to achieve the end result, right? I don't know if you would agree with that, but that's the way that I view that.
No, absolutely. I 100% agree, Jamie. That's the way to do it. Um, Look, generic AI, which is the LLMs and the Gen AI tools, they can do a lot. So as you were talking about Cloud Cowork, it's amazing once you get used to it. Although you gotta put guardrails, even though I know you're just doing allow once, I know exactly what that is, but still you gotta put guardrails around it. But that has a lot of momentum. That has a lot of ability. Same as for web search, Google will give you 99% of the things, and then when you have 1% or a 10% specialized needs where you need to go and search for certain set of prospects or clients, then you go to specialized tools. That's how you gotta split it up.
How do you what's the conversation MSPs should be having with their clients about AI right now that most of them aren't?
Yeah, the conversation they ought to be having is to start about not scare tactics, not in terms of, oh, these are all the AI risks and dangers, but talk about visibility first. And that, maps into exactly what we were talking about in terms of crawl, walk, run. So the conversation, do you have visibility? Do you have control in terms of the tools being used? And that naturally flows into aspect of, do you have protection into AI specific threats or data loss, and that translates into a policy and into a service. And at Kipling we have defined that alongside the product, that sort of a motion that takes them from 0 to 30 and 30 to 60 days, and allow them to walk their SMB customer along that same path without saying, oh, here's another service for AI, buy it, or oh, you are doomed because AI is going to wreck your business.
Yeah, I that kind of leads into the next question. As AI agents start taking more autonomous actions on behalf of employees, right? Because that's kind of what you see
Yeah,
is
yeah,
there is inherently more trust in that, and that's where like we saw it with Claudebot or OpenClaw or whatever the hell they're calling it
yeah.
these days, right? Like
Open cloud.
that
Yeah,
whole idea of it being an actual extension of yourself and being able to act on your behalf, right? Um, how does the security and governance challenge change now with that change that we're seeing with these tooling?
yeah. Look, I mean, and again, just to establish it for our audience in terms of AI agents, as I mentioned, OpenClaw was certainly in the news, but Cowork is the one that people mostly use. I mean, these are add-ons on top of your AI. Your ChatGPT and Claude or whatnot does something in response to the human initiating that workflow, whether it is in terms of doing deep research on a topic or crafting some kind of collateral. You are the one triggering it. An AI agent is more autonomous. That could run locally. It connects with LLMs in the backend, but it essentially does tasks on your behalf. And you talk to it through, whether directly through a ChatGPT like interface or through Discord, Telegram, or so on. It's almost a digital employee with your permission, but that's the keyword. It has your permissions. It is you, or it's your digital avatar. So again, what's the first thing to be done? The first thing is to provide visibility around it. What are the agents being run? What are the agents your team is running? And these agents are not regular pattern based, so your existing tools are somewhat limited because they are, whether something is an AI agent or not, you have to look at the behavior and the intent of it. So that's the discovery part, enumerate each tool. And the second part is to know the scope or the privileges that have been granted to that agent in terms of the scope of, you have given it rights to your local directory. Have you connected it to Gmail? Is it also connected to corporate SharePoint? So that's the next aspect to be discovered. Based on that, what I like to call it, you can know what the blast radius of this AI agent is. How much damage can it do? Like, let's look at the worst case scenario. And that's, once you have that, then you put in controls in terms of limiting that blast radius. Maybe it can, access Gmail, but it cannot get files from your SharePoint. Maybe it can talk to Discord, but it cannot be connected into your Teams channel, so on and so forth. So that's again the discovery, blast radius, guardrails, and control. I see that sequence working well with agents, although
Yeah.
they differ in terms of how they crop up.
I think the theme of being purposeful, but more importantly, being intentional keeps popping up in a lot of what your core beliefs are, and obviously based off of what you say. Like being obviously, it's one thing to say, hey, you need to be, which I'm a big believer in, being intentional and disciplined with your
Yeah,
life, and that obviously can be applied to really niche and edge cases within your life, your professional career, family life, etc. Right? But you talking about this specifically, like being incredibly intentional about what the use of the tool, what you give it permission to. I mean, everything that you just mentioned. Intentionality is a theme that I just keep hearing over and over from you. And I'm assuming that's obviously based off of a career that has proven that concept to be true over and over again.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. You gotta, walk with their eyes open. And AI is not just another thing. It's not just another app. It's not just another, social media platform. It's a whole new paradigm.
Mm,
And it has great power. And as Spider-Man said, with great power
yes,
comes great responsibility. And it's
absolutely.
incumbent on MSPs and the IT owners to enforce that responsibility. And then I think I'm a AI optimist. It is going to make things better, but let's not um, let's be intentional, as
Yeah,
as as you as you rightfully
absolutely.
said, Jamie.
I'm an AI optimist as well, and I think in order to be an AI optimist, you have to be intentional, right? Because it's you could easily. I guess I'm just a big believer in, and as cheesy as it sounds, like you creating your own reality. We have
Yeah.
that potential into creating our reality with AI. And if you're going to be an
Yep.
AI optimist, you've got to be human first AI intentionality built in to the direction
Totally.
that you're trying to go to. And I think where the AI fatigue and AI doom, which look, frankly, is I based off when you hear the talking points of a lot of these giants in the world talking about AI, I think are absolutely they're understandable and I think they're warranted, right? But we have the control over with intentionality, with that optimism built in, and being human first and saying that's the future that we want, using this as a tool, right? Not using humans as a product.
Right, right. Human in the loop is the other way, right? Humans first and human in the loop. And that's an intentional
Absolutely.
design choice as well. I mean, something we have implemented as well. There are
Yeah, we
places
have
where
to.
we can detect things and act autonomously, but we take the more conservative way in terms of deferring to human. Because if we act autonomously, maybe we'll be right 90% of the time, but we cannot afford to have that 10% disparity.
Yeah, I want to ask you one more question as we wrap up here, based off of you. You spent
Yeah.
16 years at Juniper Networks, correct?
That's correct.
Yep, and you were building infrastructure that the internet like literally ran on, right? Uh,
Yes.
then you walk away and you start from zero. Okay, most people with that kind of institutional credibility and career equity, if you will, never make that jump, right? It's very rare to see somebody do that. Not saying it never happens; it's rare. You're one of the people that did make that jump. What did you see from inside that world that you couldn't unsee, and made starting over feel less like a risk and more like a logical move for opportunity?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, if I say I jumped into it without any fear or trepidation, I'd be lying. And then
I think
that's
that's all
part of
of
the
us.
start. Yeah, that that stays with you in any startup or any entrepreneurial journey, as you well know, Jamie. So, but the thing, you realize these organizations, and I'm not talking about any particular one, start to gather rust and you know lose sight of the bigger picture or a purpose, and become more about organizational dynamics, call it politics, process, and that starts to weigh you down. I mean, often I would wake up and look back at what did I achieve over the last 4 weeks. I flew from here to X place in the world. I was in Stockholm, I was in London, then I was in Tokyo. And what did I do there? I met a bunch of people, and we spoke and we discussed and we had more meetings and more meetings. But look back 6 months, nothing has really moved. There, it's a big ship, and then it's moving along on its way. So the impact I could have on it, even at a senior leadership position, was limited. And that was one thing that drew me to startups and entrepreneurship, in terms of, can I and the extended team have an outsized impact on what we do, what we deliver, and the difference we make. That's, I think, to me, that's the biggest deal. It's not money, fame, all those things might be side impacts. Can we make an impact? That's what we are trying to do with respect to this particular segment around MSPs, around SMBs, which we are very passionate about, even though we never had any any experience in it. But over the last 2+ years, we have spent every waking minute and second in this community, and we're very passionate about it and the impact we can make. So that's really
That's
the
awesome,
difference.
man. Yeah, I would, as a quick point, I would recommend anybody that does want money and fame not become especially the money thing, not become an entrepreneur. So, yeah, but no, that's very well said, man, and I love to hear that. Obviously, you have to have a passion for what you're doing, a passion for who you're serving, and it sounds like you guys are absolutely doing it the right way. So, look, I appreciate you making the times, Rob. It was a great conversation. Definitely feel like we were some kindred spirits and a lot of
Yeah,
viewpoints,
absolutely.
which I love. Where can people find you? Where can they find Kipling and reach out to you if they're interested?
Yeah, look, for Kipling, hit us up on our website, kiplingsecure.ai. We have, the first step. There's a demo button, allows you to easily schedule a demo with us. That can be the first conversation for most MSPs. I am very active on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to reach out to me. And of course, my email is my first name, Saurabh, which you can gather from the screen. It's not the easiest to remember, at kiplingsecure.ai. So happy to talk to the community and exchange thoughts about how AI is evolving, how MSPs can take advantage and also not be exposed to the risk that comes with it.
Yeah, I love that, man. I One of the things I love about the community is that it's relational. It is a community. It's communal, and so yeah, obviously anybody listening, take advantage of that because I genuinely believe Rob means that and isn't just saying it. So, for everybody tuning in to the channel Unfiltered, really appreciate you guys tuning in, listening. I really appreciate the conversation once again. Hopefully, everyone has found value in that. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well, and all the other episodes go check out as well because we got a lot of them coming out specifically with the Pitch It competition and partnering with the Pitch It and Bike Connect Wise and the conversations we're having with their contestants. So once again, thanks again for the time, man, and we'll talk to you
Thanks.
soon.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.
See
This
ya.
was fun.